Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll look at a new exhibit at the Otter Tail County Museum about the 100th anniversary of the Fergus Falls cyclone. But first, joining me now is Shawn Kaufman, the Executive Director of The Human Family. Shawn, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
As we get started, we always like to ask, tell us about yourself, your background maybe.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force, and we moved every 3 or 4 years to wonderful states like Colorado and Alaska and Wyoming, and he retired in Ohio, so I spent most of my time there, went to film school, and worked in media production, and decided to change my life a little bit to do good. And took a job with the American Red Cross, which brought me here to Fargo, North Dakota to help combat tornadoes and floods and apartment fires.
Well, so you came here, you've been here a few years. How long have you been with the Human Family?
We started the Human Family about 2 years ago, so we turned 2 in March, so we're still a pretty young organization.
Well, what is the Human Family?
That's a great question. The Human Family is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting human rights and social justice through film and art. Okay. That's really kind of the core components of what we do.
So how is the organization funded?
Donations through the generosity of our public here in North Dakota, and through grants, through state and federal grants that help promote arts and film festival type activities.
Yeah. How many staff are involved with the Human Family?
We have 3 part-time staff and probably about 15 to 20 dedicated volunteers that help all of the different programming activities that we do.
Yeah. Well, that said, what are your goals with the organization?
You know, really our goals are to educate and to inform and to help individuals understand that there are different types of perspectives in the world. Especially in North Dakota, we don't necessarily get exposed to all of the different sides of a given story. So our goal is to really help our communities see the different perspectives and the different sides of difficult conversations, so that as we talk about how best to move forward and create positive, inclusive communities, we understand kind of where everybody's coming from.
Do you have a central location, or how are you organized there?
We're based here in Fargo, yes. We have our main offices are here in Fargo, but our programming is statewide, so we cover the entire state of North Dakota.
Okay, so you do that. Well, let's talk about some specific things your organization is involved in with the North Dakota Human Rights Film and Arts Festival. When is it and what is it?
Yeah, well, it's 2 years old. We just had our second film and art festival. I'm going to break them into 2 different categories because they've kind of taken on lives of their own. But the Human Rights Film Festival started last November in 2017. So our festival is traditionally in the fall, and the first year was just held here in Fargo at the Fargo Theater. And the festival took place over 3 nights, and it was incredibly successful. I got to be honest with you, we weren't too sure how the festival was going to go, because we were getting hate from both sides of the equation. On one side, people in North Dakota were telling us to take our festival and go somewhere else because they didn't want to see those types of films and hear those kind of conversations here. And on the other side, we had people from outside of the state saying, well, they would never come to a festival for human rights in North Dakota because North Dakota doesn't have human rights. And so it was like, well, we're going to do this because we think it's important, but we're not too sure how many people are going to come. And I'm excited to say that our first year we sold out just about every night. There were maybe 3 seats open on opening night at the Fargo Theater and Theater 2, and we sold out Thursday and Friday night. So we're like, well, okay, there's an audience for this. And the reception was so positive that this year we actually expanded the festival, and we're in Grand Forks, Bismarck, and Fargo. So in 2018, we held the festival again in November and expanded it to 3 different cities, which was really
exciting. Was it a good turnout for that?
It really was. We had we increased our audience by 50% in Fargo, and then we had a really strong turnout in both Grand Forks and Bismarck, where we just had the festival for a day. We had afternoon and evening screenings, and it went really well. And the art festival is actually still happening right now. As I said, it kind of took on a life of its own. We had an art festival that took place at the same time as the first festival in November. And then this year, the art festival expanded as well. So it started here in January at the Plains Art Museum, and it expanded to travel to Bismarck at the Bismarck Downtown Artist Cooperative for the month of February. And then in March, we're going to be moving to Grand Forks to the Arts Nest, which is a brand new artist space up in downtown Grand Forks. So the response to that has been equally as exciting. We doubled the number of art submissions this year, and we actually have some really beautiful large pieces that cover all sorts of conversations, from women's rights to the rights to food to LGBT and QI rights, and it's just a really engaging conversation piece that we're excited to bring to each of our different communities.
Now, with the Arts Festival, I'll stay with that. Is that regional artists? Now, where do you bring the art exhibits from?
That's a great question. We had 35 artists this year that were a part of the festival, and they're from around the world. About half of them are from the state of North Dakota, from Bismarck, Grand Forks, Minot, and Fargo. The other half, most of them are from within the continental U.S. We have folks from New York, from Wisconsin, from Kansas who have submitted artwork. And then we have we moved our experimental films into the art festival because it just seemed to be a better venue for some of the films that we were receiving that were really, really good, but may not play well on a large screen in front of a traditional audience, if that makes sense. So the Experimental Film Festival is actually part of our traveling art exhibit now, and 2 of those filmmakers are from outside of the U.S., from Iran and Syria.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to say, backing up for the films come from everywhere also. Everywhere
in the world. We had 181 submissions last year for films that were specific to human rights, civil rights, or some type of social justice conversation. And from around the world, 181 films from 22 different countries is what we had submitted last year. So it's just a really eclectic and diverse conversation that's taking place at the film festival.
How do you cooperate with the Fargo Film Festival?
Well, we haven't yet. We're still a little baby festival, okay. And they're really established, and they do some really really exciting things that hopefully we can live up to one day. But the first year, our focus, we really are a niche film festival. Mm-hmm. We focus on a specific type of conversation, which is really important because I don't know that all of the films that are played at our festival have the opportunity to have their voices shared at these larger festivals, because they are more they're important festivals, but they take on more narrative and different types of documentary work that we do. We focus on specific conversations about human rights, civil rights, or social justice issues. In our first year, we had a tremendous number of films from local filmmakers, and I have to say, as far as the Fargo Film Festival was concerned, I felt like we were on the right track, because some of the films that we screened also screened there, and I'm like, okay, we're doing a good job if they feel these films are important.
Oh, good. Well, let's move on then. What about the Home series? What's that?
So part of the mission of the human family is to have these conversations and to engage people in different ways. We do that through programming where we showcase other people's work, such as the Human Rights Film and Arts Festival, where we invite artists and other filmmakers to share their stories. The other way we do that is by producing original content. And we have 2 projects now, one of which is Home, which is a 12-episode television series about the homelessness issue here in North Dakota. It's a quiet, crisis is what we're hearing from the people we're interviewing. We're interviewing homeless advocates and prevention institutions from around the state. We've got about 15 interviews, I should say 15 hours of interviews from advocates in Grand Forks and Minot, Bismarck, Fargo. We're going to be traveling out to Williston to talk to individuals there, and we're trying to really capture what the issue is about this crisis. And a big part of it actually is dealing with the myths and some of the misunderstandings that are attributed to homelessness. Some of the, well, they just don't want to work, or they're lazy, or they the state doesn't have a responsibility to take care of them kind of arguments. And what we're doing is we're really exploring each of those issues, and each of the different episodes picks up on a different type of conversation that we should be talking about as part of that conversation. So we're addressing the myths, we're addressing who's impacted, whether it's single white males or Native Americans or domestic violence or human trafficking survivors. We're talking about some of the issues that play into that, such as affordable housing or not having access to a living wage, and then some of the other systemic issues that kind of play into preventing people from finding a way out of homelessness. Because it's something that, as we're going through this series, one of the things we've discovered is that it's something that most people are literally just 1 or 2 paychecks away from experiencing. So it's been a really important project for us to pick up and to share. And I think that one of the things we've started doing is we've started premiering the first episode, which is about 40 minutes long. Each of the episodes is about half an hour long. And the first episode we've started premiering in theater settings in Grand Forks, Bismarck, and Fargo, with a panel discussion with local experts talking about their specific communities and what the issues are and how we can address it. And the one common theme that we're getting back on all of our surveys from people who've seen the film is, I had no idea. I didn't realize that this was what was causing the problem in our state. So our hope is to continue doing that, and especially right now, in the middle of a legislative session, when they're talking about whether to provide money to, whether to provide or how much money to provide to some of these homeless advocates and prevention agencies. Understanding the nuanced conversations around it is really important.
Sure. And I've said before, yeah, a lot of us are 1 or 2 paychecks away from having issues like this. Let's move on to, what about the Human Rights Champion of North Dakota History Project?
Yeah, so the second original project that we're working on is called Those Among Us, the Human Rights Champions of North Dakota. And this was kind of born from those social media posts I shared a little bit earlier, where people were like, well, human rights don't exist in North Dakota. Well, you know, actually they do. And actually there are some amazing people in North Dakota working to ensure that human rights are both protected and expanded to different communities throughout the state. So what we decided to do was to start highlighting these stories and these individuals in written form and through photography, where we would capture their photograph and have them write an essay about the who's and why's and what's of what they do. The twist, though, is that we're using the old wet plate photo process to capture all of these images. We're using this historic process so that we can create this historic, what we've been calling a contemporary history project. And the work is from Shane Balkowicz. He's this incredible photographer out in Bismarck. He's volunteering his time to capture all of these stories, and we capture their images on glass, and all of these glass 4x6 images will be submitted to the State Historical Society when we're completed with the project, so that 200 years from now, if somebody wanted to know who was fighting the homelessness cause in North Dakota, they'll find a picture of Sue Kosterman and they'll read her story, and they'll be like, oh, well, there were some really good people in North Dakota back in 2019.
Well, Sean, we're running low on time, but what about the World in Fargo-Moorhead project and the Global Tapestries project? I think you said they're sort of combined.
They are, yeah. So part of our mission is to really, again, share perspectives. And the World in Fargo-Moorhead project is a community photo project that was designed to focus on the diversity in Fargo-Moorhead. So we have volunteer storytellers and photographers that go out and capture the different images of people who work and live in Fargo-Moorhead, just to showcase the positive diversity in our cities.
And what about the Rethink Dance Film Festival?
Yeah, so art is really important, and art comes through in many different ways. So last year we had our first film festival with the Rethink Dance Film Festival, and we invited films that focus on telling stories through dance to participate. And we had about 80 films show, filmmakers apply to be a part of the festival, and they varied from tango dances to ballet dances to contemporary dances, all told through the pairing of cinematography. So you have basically the dancer dancing with the camera, and it's we had some incredible stories that were told that night, and we're looking forward to continuing it in the future.
You recently participated in Giving Heart Today activities, I think you said, for the first time. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, you know, the Impact Foundation is really, really, really great. I think they're just really passionate people who are dedicated to making our communities better through nonprofits and helping nonprofits meet their missions through this process. So it's our first year, and we were really excited to participate, and we're thankful for all the energy they bring to the community around donations and supporting organizations that do good.
Well, Sean, what can art do maybe better than any other endeavor?
You know, art allows the individual to experience something. You know, art can be visual, it can be tangible, it can be sensual in terms of, you know, you could hear it, you could smell it. And I think what's important about art is because different people react to things differently, the visual medium that the art or the tactical medium that the art provides allows our communities to understand things in a different way that maybe they wouldn't have been able to understand before. And that's really important.
You know, who are some of the artists maybe you've enjoyed working with and have helped make a difference?
You know, there are two that immediately come to mind. The first is Faraz Anasazi. He's a Indian filmmaker that I met through the North Dakota Human Rights Film Festival. He submitted a piece called Sisek, which is a purely silent film that just touches my heart. And I've just fallen in love with him as a filmmaker, and we talk about the importance of cinema and politics. And he really is just an inspiring artist to me. Locally, you know, we have just a tremendous amount of filmmakers out in Bismarck. Justin Deegan comes to mind, who's doing some incredible work down on the tribal nations in terms of telling their stories and capturing images out of analog film. And then, of course, Shane Bakowicz, who I've talked about previously with Those Among Us. I mean, the work that he's doing in Bismarck is just phenomenal.
How can people get involved?
Our website is human-family.org. All of the information, all of our events, volunteer opportunities are all listed there. So visit us there, and you'll be able to engage however you'd like.
Well, and people can contribute there, or how can they contribute?
Absolutely. So donations are accepted on our website. Giving Hearts Day is a great way to do it as well, and you can follow us on social media. We've post links every now and again through there that will allow you to donate to the cause as well.
Okay. Sean, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Stay tuned for more. It may seem impossible to believe, but 100 years ago, Fergus Falls, Minnesota was decimated by a cyclone. A new exhibit currently on display at the Otter Tail County Museum in Fergus Falls commemorates this bizarre and historic occasion. Here's a look.
Weather just suddenly changed. The wind that came up blew the front door open. When all at once it got dark and everything went black, and that was it.
It's the 100th anniversary of the Fergus Falls cyclone, June 22nd, 1919, the single most impactful event in the history of Fergus Falls. So to commemorate this event, we've put together this exhibit. So far it's been received very nicely. A lot of people like it, lots of information. The photographs are wonderful. And of course there's some artifacts from the tornado, and we're pleased with it.
There were reports of a lot of rumbling going on. There were also reports of people just knowing. There was this eeriness of the day. In fact, lots of people said they knew something was going to happen. They knew that a storm was going to happen. They, of course, had no idea of how large of a storm it would be.
So about 4:50, 4:52, the first funnel cloud appeared and touched down in the community. It touched down, and we believe there were 2 tornadoes, or 2 accounts of 2 funnel clouds that hit Fergus Falls. And there was no warning system, of course, no radio, no TV to tell people, so people scrambled for safety as best they could.
There is a debate over how many funnels and the path. There is some still debate going on. The newspapers right after the storm reported that the first funnel touched down 3 blocks south of the state hospital and came down that corridor of Vine Street, and then another branched off and went around the northern and then east side of Lake Alice. Most of the destruction that occurred was in that heart of the city, Vine and Lincoln area. The death toll is still hard to be completely precise on. We think if we say 58, that's pretty close. There's a couple families that really were hard hit with deaths. One of the families that comes to my mind, the Kreitzer family, who lost some teenage children. And then the Palm family, the mother, father, and one of the children died, leaving 3 small children.
One of the biggest buildings that was destroyed was the Grand Hotel. A number of deaths occurred at the Grand Hotel. Within a few minutes, the 2 tornadoes wreaked havoc on the city of Fergus Falls, destroying or damaging much of the community. Over 50 people were killed, hundreds injured, and it forever altered the landscape of the community.
This storm happened on a Sunday, and the fact that it happened on a Sunday was actually a good thing because a lot of people were out of town. People were not in their businesses. People were not in the schools. And so that actually was a very good thing and probably kept the death toll down. Our logo design, we used a WPA project painting, and it is of the destruction of the Catholic Church. The cyclone blew out the center of the Catholic Church, and so I think that was something to illustrate this storm. We have hundreds of photographs, and so it just meant that we needed to look through those and make some subjective decisions. But anybody that wanted to see more could come and use our library to view even more cyclone photographs. We probably have about 500, I would say, in our collection.
A lot of the photographs were taken by a man named W.T. Oxley. He was a photographer. He lived up on North Cleveland. When the storm hit, he and his family went to their cellar. Immediately after the storm, he picked up his camera, loaded it on his truck, and went out into the streets of Fergus Falls and documented the damage literally within minutes of the tornado. Cyclone and tornado were kind of used interchangeably. I mean, they are 2 different things. It's about the rotation of the winds. Except the next day in the Fergus Falls Daily Journal, the term cyclone hits Fergus Falls. And so we've kind of historically used the term cyclone, even though it's incorrect because it was a tornado, but the term cyclone kind of stuck. It was just immediate recovery, taking care of the injured and of the dead, but really, literally within a few days, the recovery process began. It was remarkable the recovery effort took place very quickly. Within months, the Union Avenue and Court Street bridges were rebuilt. You had the county courthouse rebuilt in 1922. You had the Great Northern Depot rebuilt in the early 20s. Literally, I think within months, the community was rebuilding. So you see a lot of activity taking place by 1920.
If you really study these pictures, you kind of go, wow, how is Fergus Falls still here? Because this storm destroyed 2/3 of our city. But you know what it also does? It just tells us the resilience of the people. They all rebuilt. All that was destroyed was rebuilt, and it was rebuilt even better.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.